Hi guys, so let's start with the next lab. So before going to the lab, let's just quickly overview this. So integrating remote MCP servers. So if you want to integrate remote MCP servers in Azure, so what we have to do? So to connect a remote MCP server, we need a server endpoint, MCP server endpoint like this, right? So if we go to this, let's go to this api.github copilot.mcp, right? So this is a server endpoint, right? So first of all, we need MCP server endpoint. Then what will we need? Azure AI Foundry agent. We need to configure that to use MCP tool, right? So these are the two requirements. First, the server endpoint, right? Then remote MCP server endpoint. So this is a remote MCP server, right? And then Azure AI Foundry agent configured to use MCP tool, and we have to configure our agent to use MCP tool. So these are the two conditions to connect an MCP server. You can connect multiple MCP servers, right, by adding them as separate tools. So if you want to connect to multiple MCP servers, just add them as a separate tool, right? So for each of the tools, then you have to tell the server label, which is a unique identifier for MCP server. Then server URL, what is the URL of the server, and then the allowed tools. So a list of specific tools that agent is allowed to access, right? So this is optional. And then MCP tools support custom headers. So you can have authentication keys of different types like API keys, OAuth tokens, right? Other required headers for MCP server is the header that include tool resources. So if your tool need any resources during each run, then that should also be specified in the header during each run and are not stored between runs, right? So these resources are included during each run. These are not stored between the runs. The next is invoking tools. So Azure's MCP tool object. So that tool object, you don't need to wrap function tools or invoke session.call tool. So as we use with the MCP library, we used to call session.call tool. We do not have to do that with MCP tool object. Instead, tools are automatically invoked when necessary during an agent run. So these are automatically invoked by the agent when necessary. To automatically invoke MCP tools, what we have to do is, first of all, we need to create MCP tool object. Then we have to use update headers to apply any headers to it. Then we have to set approval method. So set approval method determine whether approval is required or not, right? So if it's required, then it means no, never. You will set it to never. So the approval will always be required by the user, like by the human, right? And if it is always means sorry, I get it wrong. So if it is never, then never means that AI will never take your approval. Always means that AI will always take your approval before calling the tool. A developer needs to provide approval for every call. If you don't provide a value, this one is default. So this is the default one that developer needs to provide approval, but you can set it to never so that agent doesn't need your approval to call the tool. It will call the tool automatically, right? Then you create a toolset object and you add your MCP tool object and create an agent and specify the toolset property. So in the toolset property of your agent, you will give this toolset object that you have created, and this toolset object that you have created, you will add MCP tool object in that. And what is this MCP tool object? This whole MCP tool object that you created with different parameters, right? When the run completes, you should see the results of an invoked tools in the response, right? So whenever the run completes, you will see the response of the invoked tool, right? And the next is if model tries to invoke a tool in your MCP server with approval required. So if you set this always, right, you can get a run status of requires action, right? So in the run status, there will be a requires action. In the require action field, you can get more details on which tool in the MCP server is called and any arguments to be passed. So you get details of the tool call, like what the model is requesting, right? Which tool it wants to call and what arguments it want to pass. You will get that in the requires action field. So we can review the name of the tool and the arguments. So we can make the informed decision that whether this approval should be made or not. Submit your approval to the agent with call ID by setting approve to true, right? So then you need to submit your approval, right? So MCP integration is key step towards richer, more context-aware AI agents, right? So we will see all of these things working in our lab. So this was just to go through. This was a quick overview. So if you don't understand anything, then everything will be cleared in the lab. So yeah, let's go to the lab. So in the lab, first of all, we have to do the same things. We have to create a our Foundry project, and in the Foundry project, we have to select GPT-4o model or GPT-4o mini. So these are the same steps that we always perform. So we go to Azure portal, then we go to the classic version of the portal of the Cloud Shell, right? Classic version of the Cloud Shell. Then we will clone this repository, go to this directory, and then install some libraries in our virtual environment, right? And then we will go to our environment variables, open them in text editor. So I have done all those steps, right? So these are the simple steps. And after that, the main level starts from the code. So first of all, we just need to configure our environment variables. So this is the project that I will be using, agent custom tools, right? And here I have already opened the shell, the Cloud Shell, and I have already installed my libraries in my virtual environment. So let's clear this. Now, as this is a classic version of the Cloud Shell, we can open the editor. So we will code.env. Let's first see what is in the files. Okay, ls minus a minus l. So you can see there is client.py.env and requirements.txt and my virtual environment lab.env, right? So we will first of all open code.env, right? And here we have to specify our project endpoint and model deployment name. Our model deployment name is GPT-4o mini, right? And the project endpoint is this. So this is our project endpoint. We paste it here, right? So we paste this here, whole T. Okay. So this is our project endpoint. GPT-4 mini model. We can go to models plus endpoints here, and here you can see this is our deployment name. So this is the model deployment name that we have to specify. Control S, Control Q. Afterwards, what we have to see is, let's open the code file. So code client dot UI, right? So this is our code, and majority of the lab we will just be doing our code, right? So let's understand this. First of all, we need to import some libraries. So first of all, we will import azure.ai.agents. From that, we will import, okay, from, we will import AI agents client, agent client. I think it's agent client, right? So this is agent client. So this is agent client, right? We import the agent client. Then from azure.ai.agents.model, we import some more things. So let's see here. So agents client, right? Because it is agent, so that is the agents client. And then from the models, we have to import the MCP tool set and list sort order, right? So first we have to, list sort order is basically, as you can see, it is order. So it is use something for ordering the things, right? So first of all, it is used to something. This is a, like, if there is a list, right, then in list we have to sort something, and in which order, ascending order or descending order, right? So this is a descriptive name which basically is an enum, and it has two values. One is ascending, another is descending. So we will use this when we call the list method on our messages, right? When we call that, then we will basically want the messages in particular order. Either we want from recent to latest or latest to recent messages. So then we can use this enum. So this is just a small thing, the list sort order, right? And then we have MCP tool. So MCP tool is basically a tool that is provided, and the tool set is basically the collection of tools, right? So MCP tool, and then tool set. So we have to import these. Then let's see how we are identifying ourselves. So we are using default Azure credentials. So from Azure identity, import default Azure credentials, right? Credential, default Azure credential, right? Now we have imported the library. Now we need to connect to our agents client. So for that, what we do, agents client, right? And here we pass our endpoint, and in the endpoint we will pass the endpoint. So these are the endpoints that we have loaded from our environment variable. So we'll pass it here, and the credential, and in the credential we will pass uh, default is your credential, right? Default is your credential. So here we'll specify some parameters like exclude. We do not want the managed identity credentials, so we will set this to true. We have to exclude it. So we do not want this to try manage identity, because we do not want to authenticate with managed identity, right? So exclude manage identity credential true, exclude environment credential true. So we also do not want it to go to our environment variables and check for credentials, right? So exclude environment credential equal to true. Let's see if I have done any spelling mistakes in my environment credential, manage identity credential. So yeah, this is, I will just copy these here. But yeah, okay, yeah. So these are the things here. From here, we will get our agent client, right? And we will store that in here, agents client. We can put it this also, right? So agents client. So this is, we connected to our agent. Now this is the MCP server URL. So let's see. Initialize client, initialize agent MCP tool. Okay, you are connected to the client, and afterwards, this is the server configuration. So server label is ms learn, and the server URL is learnmicrosoft.com API MCP, right? So this is the server's URL, the MCP server URL, and this is the label of that URL that we have decided, right? Now we need to initialize the MCP tool. So for that, to initialize, we would obviously use MCP tool, right? So MCP tool. So we'll use that. We just need to know what we have to pass here, right? Then we will get this in our tool, right? And then we will also add this in our tool set. So in our tool set also, like, this is our tool set, right? So this tool set, we will get our tool set from here, right? Tool set, and then we will add something in our tool set. So let's see what's happening here in this case. So yeah, we created our tool set, we will add something in our tool set, right? And where is it? Yeah, so tool set dot add, here we will add our tool, right? The MCP tool. Now we just have to think about what we will pass in the tool. So I think we will pass the server URL and label, obviously. So yeah, here we can see that we are passing the server label and server URL. So let's pass that also. So server label equals to MCP server label, and then server URL equals to MCP server URL. So this is where we pass these things so that our tool can be created. So our MCP tool has now been created. Now we will set the approval method. So we will set the approval method to never. So never means you don't have to take the approval, just do it on your own, right? So tool dot set approval method, right? We have to set it to never. So never set approval method mode, approval mode, not method. Approval, it's not a method, it's just a mode. Set approval mode to never. So yeah, we created our tool. We initialized the MCP tool with the label information and URL information. We set the approval mode to never, and we then added it to the our tool set. So now we need to create an agent. So creating an agent, we will use a client. So we have an agents client that we created, right? So we will do create method here, create agent, right? Or create method. Let's see, create agent, right? And in this create agent, first of all, we need to pass the model. That is a mandatory argument, right? So model deployment. I think we have, yes, model deployment, right? Next thing what we have to pass is our messages, right? So what message we want to pass? Let's see that also. And then what we'll pass? We will pass the tool set. So what will be our tool set? So our tool set will be our tool set, right? So this tool set we are passing in our tool set. Then the model name, and let's see. Yeah, we have to also give the name and instructions. So no messages. This is agent, right? This is not the model. Sorry about that. This is the agent. So we have to give a name to the agent, and we also have to give instructions to agent. Instructions to the agent. So the name of the agent will be my MCP agent. So let's copy that and paste it. Then instructions are MCP server called Microsoft.docs MCP. So you have the access to this server. This tool allows you to search through Microsoft's latest official documentation. Use the available MCP tools to answer questions and perform tasks. Right. So this is the instruction. Let's copy this and paste it here. So these are the instructions, right? And tab. I think this is okay. Now we have to put a comma here. And now we have created our agent. The only thing is that we also do not pass any tools here, right? So the thing is, as in the initial, like it is very common to pass all the tool set when you are creating an agent, but we are not passing our tool set to our agent here, right? When we are creating the agent, we are not passing it here. Agent equals to this. So in the previous class, we have seen that whenever we want to pass a tool set, we pass that during the creation of the agent. But here we will not pass it during the creation of the agent. Instead, when we are doing our run, then we will pass the our tool, right? So let's create a thread. So creating a thread is like you will use your agent client. So agent client dot threads dot create, and this does not require any argument. So this is how our thread will be created. So this is basically the our conversation, like it's WhatsApp thread or that kind of thread. So this is like a thread of messages, right? Now create message on the thread. For that also we have to create agents client dot messages dot create message, where we will pass our thread ID, right? And this will be thread dot ID, and then we will passing our, so we need a message to be in a particular thread. Then the message should have a role and a content. So the role will be user, and content will be some content, right? So this will be our message that we are creating on a particular thread, right? So now let's see what's happening here. So after we created an agent, we create a thread. So this is our thread we created, right? We can also print its thread ID. Let's print that also here. So yeah, so this is good for debugging, right? Print statements. Then afterwards, we will be creating a message on a thread. But how we will create it? We just not create a message. We will prompt the user to have the prompt. So that is the prompt we want to pass the prompt in the message, right? So that is why before creating the message here, we want to pass the prompt. So prompt will come from where? It will come from the user. So how can I help? User will prompt something that will be passed to our that will create our message, right? So here we can print the message ID. So let's see here. We are printing the message ID. Let's save it. Afterwards, we have to set the approval method for the MCP tool to never, right? This allows the agent to automatically move the MCP tools without requiring user approval. If you want the approval, you must supply a header value using MCP tool.update headers if we want to require approval, right? So let's copy this. So we have to set the approval mode here also, right? We initially also set the approval mode to never to the tool, right? And here also we are setting the approval mode to never. So let's see, setting the approval mode. So we have set the approval mode to never. Then let's see the last step. So last step is create and process agent run in thread with MCP tools. So here we do what? Let's see. Now to create and process the agent run is in thread. First of all, we need to create run. So first of all, we will use our agents client, then runs, then create and process. Why it is create and process? Because we do not want that we just get the job ID and then we keep on pulling it. After the job is completed, only then the result will come. So that is why and process is there, right? Create and process. So for agent to run, what it needs the conversation history. So that is mean it would need a thread ID, right? So it would need a thread ID, which is thread.id, right? Next thing it would need is it would need the agent, right, to run. So agent ID will be equal to agent.id. So where this agent comes from? So when we created the agent, this agent is coming from this. So agent.id. So this is agents client.runs.create and process. So right, we will get the response here. So we can get the response, or we can say the result. Or no, this will be just a run. This will be just a run. So we get a run here, right? Let's see here. Yeah, so we get a run. This is not a response. This is just a run. And then here we provide a tool set. So that is something different here. In create and process, we are providing the tool set. So here tool set equals to the tool set, right? So and then we can have this run.id. Let's see here we have run.id, right? Now let's try to run the code. So we have created the whole code. Now we will try to run the code. And let's see, before running the code, make sure that you have login using AZ login. Even though you are logging into your Azure account, you still have to use AZ login. Otherwise, it will throw an authentication error, right? Now we have to paste this. Give me the Azure CLI command to create an Azure container app with a managed identity, right? So that is the command that they have given here. So we have to prompt it. So now let's see, enter. So it has created a message. Great. Thread was created, agent was created. Now it has created a message, and now we're waiting for the response. It has created a run. So yeah, so let's see what's the response. So yeah, we asked it something, then it created the message, then it created the run completed with status completed, right? Then this is the status completed. Afterward we are doing MCP tool calls, whose tool call ID will be this. Type is MCP and type is Microsoft code sample search. Okay, then this is the conversation. So this is basically using the messages dot list, right? So give me the Azure CLI command, and then the system has answered to create an Azure Container API with managed identity using Azure CLI. You can use the following commands. Then it has given all the commands with user assigned managed identity. Then the bash command here. Then for reference, you can follow this documentation. So it has given a reference. Then assign managed identity to a container app. Then you have to assign the managed identity. Then this is the command for that. More details here. With system managed identity, then this again a command, then more details here, right? Feel free to adapt commands to suit your needs. And then we have deleted the agent, for this deleted agent. So yeah, so this is the code, and all this printing is happening because of the code which is below. So we have put the code till here, right? We got our run, and then afterwards, here it is telling the status of the run, because run has a variable run.status, run.id. If it's not, then it will get a run.last error. Afterwards, we check the run status, display run steps and tool calls. So run steps is basically to, you know, understand what steps it has taken to run. There we pass the run ID and thread ID, right? So run steps dot list thread ID and run ID, and then each step, we are taking each step from the run steps, right? And then step ID, step status. So it also has an ID for each step and status for each step. So as you can see, we were printing here initially when we came here. So created message, created run completed with status, run dot complete. So this is the print statement which corresponds to this, right? Then step number, step ID and status. So step ID and status are being printed this way, step ID and status, right? So we are using run steps dot list to get our step ID and step status. So you can see this is the step ID for first step, its status is complete. Next step ID, its status is complete, right? Check if there are tool calls. So if there are tool calls, then what will it say? Step dot get step details, right? And then it will step details dot get tool calls. So from each detail it will get the tool calls, and if tool calls, then it will say that for each tool call it will get the ID, type and name of the tool call. So that is what we are getting here: tool call ID, name and type, right? So sorry, this is the type, this is the name, right? Afterwards we are doing the same thing of conversation messages. So from messages we are calling the list, we are passing the thread ID, we are passing the list order dot ascending. Once we get the messages, what we are doing is, for each message we are going to text messages, and each text message we are just grabbing the last one of it, and then we are basically printing its value from text dot value and the role dot upper. So yeah, that is all we are doing here. Then we are just cleaning up, we are just deleting our agent so that it is not getting populated in our Azure AI Foundry. So that is the whole app.